I wonder if in 2024 going into like 2025, 26 college football and coaching in general, because
Mm-hmm.
we've seen a lot of these old heads kind of leave sports, and like the younger generation will say, hey, it was cool for you to get your money. Now when players can't get there, like there's all these varying opinions,
Yeah.
right? And I wonder what the mix is, what's the right balance of not necessarily being substance over style or style over substance, but can you be like morals isn't the right word, but can you be other centered and kind of
Like grounded.
ethically grounded enough
Mm-hmm.
to function the way that you need to, or will there always be this tug of war of I'd like to do it this way. Unfortunately, I'm just not able to. Because I'm telling you, sure as I'm sitting here, Coach Rhule has it in him
Mm-hmm.
to tell you to GTFO, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just get the flip out of here.
Yeah.
Like, but it doesn't sit well with his soul.
Mm-hmm.
Like, will he always be in that kind of internal conflict? Fickle's a lot the same way. Lincoln Riley is a lot the other way.
Mm.
So, which of a mix and match is it that gets you to be able to function in college athletics? Because T Mac asked a question. Part of the reason I like talking to him all the time is um, he just thinks about things on a different level, right? And we don't want to hear it sometimes as like a fan base or in the media because it's so results oriented, and we rather write about people's contract buyouts and stir up drama, and we got some of these idiots that subscribe to and make sure you stay tuned and gut react, like just it's just noise,
Mm-hmm.
right? But at the end of the day, like there's like this actual real job to do.
Mm-hmm.
You got to coach kids, and you got to you're trying to turn some young men into more men as long as you have them in multiple facets real time, right? But you do get graded on at the bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
So some of us just want to fast forward and say, hey, what the grade is. Some of us are like, oh man, I like the strategy, but shoot, man, you need to be a better student. Or, oh man, you've come so far. Good job. Like there's all these different opinions. And T Mac asked a question that I think is legit. He said the only takeaway for me from Rhule's presser is a question. In your opinion, is Rhule comfortable with the new direction of college football? I know he's a detailed coach and super competitive, but he has he's been a little away from the college game and has never dealt with a big time college football program. I would argue that NU is a bigger job than his Panthers gig. You will say things like, "Man, he hates this whole transactional thing.
Mm-hmm.
Is he a little scarred by what happened in Charlotte? Is there this overcorrecting?"
Yeah.
And again, I wanted to ask Matt the question. I mean, I've been to Wisconsin's practices.
Mm-hmm.
I talked to those guys,
Yeah.
right?
They were going after Caleb pretty hard.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah,
like,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So you guys are familiar.
So philosophically,
Mm-hmm.
there are some similarities.
Yeah.
There's a reason there was some overlap, allegedly, in the job search,
Yeah.
right? Similar programs in terms of stylistically what they want to be.
Mm-hmm.
I just because I heard he's fighting some cold hard truths versus the essence of who he is.
Rhule or Fickle?
Rule.
Okay.
Right? I mean, what do you think he wants to say to Jamari and Marquise? Are they two different answers? Are they the same answer? Or like
It depends on which world of college football we're living in. If we're living in the one that has 105 roster limit, they might be different answers. And that, I think, works against what he wants.
it works against who he is.
Right? Because
But you're probably right. But he is also the same guy that will back channel with some of his coaches or he himself to pull young guys in or get them together to thinsulate
mm-hmm.
or to protect what may be coming down the pipe or what's currently happening because he's still invested.
Yeah.
So, like the dichotomy, I think it's fascinating.
Well, I mean,
you want to give the keys to Dylan Raiola. You want to.
Mm-hmm.
We got this guy coming in. He's a super talent. Hey, for the time being, here's the full playbook. Hey, go, man. We got you. Let's ride.
Mm-hmm.
The reality of it is shoot. Should I have done that?
We maybe gave him too much too soon.
That I normally would not do that. That is not my style.
Mm-hmm.
It is not my personality trait as a head coach. But maybe I feel like I had to pull this off originally. And then you go back and this is my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And I would tell you if I talked to him
Sure.
about this because I haven't.
Mm-hmm.
I just wonder out loud when I watch this whole thing unfold. And does a new set of eyes of somebody that's experienced and used to being in chaos, does it almost let your guys off the hook while you recalibrate what it is that you want your program to be about?
I don't know if it lets them off the hook. I do think it gives them a second to breathe. Like it gives them a little bit of space to breathe, right? Because I think there's still some responsibility and accountability there. So I don't think letting them off the hook is the way I would phrase it. But I do think it gives you a beat. Like it gives you a second to kind of recalibrate and pause and just say, hey, okay, this thing that we were doing isn't working. Let's take a second and figure out how to move forward within the principles of what we believe in, right? Like I think that's what making the move at that time gives you. It gives you just a beat, right? But you brought up something with, Coach Rhule kind of being in certain situations that he hasn't been in before, right? With whether it's Dylan or some of these other guys. And I was thinking a lot about this because I think we imagine the jobs that he did at Temple and Baylor were the same as a fan
as
base.
each other or
as each other.
So wait,
that Temple was the same as Baylor.
Okay.
But Nebraska's different.
Okay.
I think that's how we process it.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
But let's be honest here. Baylor was one of the most unique situations a college football coach has ever taken over. One of the most unique. The only thing that's even close is Penn State when Bill O'Brien took over. That was a super unique situation. Temple is a much different situation than Baylor is a much different situation than Nebraska. I think we have this, at least I
Baylor, there wasn't going to be much pressure because anything was better.
Yes, and
than
you were
what
just
they had, so you get to do what you want.
And you were coming out of this toxic wasteland.
Yeah.
Like it was Chernobyl, like it was radioactive.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Right?
I'm vibing.
So
go ahead.
I think that and I think I've sort of fallen into this a little bit myself without even realizing it, it's like, oh, he had this certain blueprint, and that blueprint worked for Temple and Baylor. And now he has to tweak the blueprint to work at Nebraska, where I think it's more likely and more accurate that Temple was one blueprint. He got in there. He figured out what he needed to do. He found a way to be successful. Okay? Then he goes to Baylor. He saw what was there, figured out what he needed to do, and then was able to be successful. I don't think there was a blueprint from Temple to Baylor that was similar in the sense outside of his core of who he is.
The question that I asked him at the 50-yard line, I'm like, if in fact you're a lifelong learner, how do you keep from falling into I've done this before?
Because he hasn't done this before. I think that's part of it.
That's just the only way I could say. I know you think this is different. I'm just telling you, it's even more different than you think it is.
100%. And I think that's sometimes a thing that we sort of fall into this trap of, well, he did this one thing specifically at Temple and Baylor, and it was the same thing. And I just don't think that's accurate. I think he's figured it out on the fly before. We just weren't there up close to see it, so we're not totally sure how it looks in real time, right? Because I'm sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, because I do think...
Is this different than whether you think the wing tee or the flex bone or the West Coast offense or the air raid or the 3-3-5 or 4-2-5 can work? Is this different?
Yes.
Okay.
This is about how a place culturally and philosophically has to operate. I think that's different at a lot of different places. And I think Temple, it was different from Baylor.
Well, clearly nobody's been able to figure it out for 25 years.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and they've run a lot of different things over that time, haven't they? A lot of different offenses, a lot of different defenses. Mm-hmm. It's not about that, right? I've said this before. All the schemes pretty much work to varying degrees. If you execute at a high level, you develop guys at a high level, you recruit guys to your system, pretty much all of them work to varying degrees. It's all the execution and development and recruiting to your style and all those things that kind of determines how much it works. So I don't care if you're running an air raid versus a West Coast versus a wing tee versus a pro or whatever, right? If you can develop and recruit to that and get guys to execute that at a high level, awesome. That's all I care about. That's kind of why I asked the question of Matt about the identity. Yeah, about the identity you choose versus it actually being an identity crisis. And I get that Wisconsin hasn't been good on offense, right? But I think people make the mistake when I say something
for as bad as 25 points a game is.
Nebraska would be a lot better if they scored 25 points a game.
That's 6 points on average better than us.
Yeah. I thought that real time when he said that. I was like, man, if Nebraska scored 25 points a game, we wouldn't be having this bowl discussion.
Oh, I know.
Right? Last year or this year.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, there's plenty of games that 25 points per game would have been terrific.
Are you surprised that we're having these conversations now about what does and doesn't work with Dylan?
I think so. Because early it looked like it worked.
Remember when we thought, oh, it's a gimmick to use Harburg. Now it's
we're not using Harburg more.
Harburg needs to play more. It's like,
which I didn't understand it then. I don't understand it now.
Well, listen. Especially game planning this week. Mm-hmm. I do whatever it takes.
Do whatever works.
I do whatever it takes to win.
Yeah, but to me, it's not a Harburg thing, right? That's why I say I don't get it. It's do whatever it takes to win. If that's playing Harburg more, sure. If that's getting the ball to Janair and Bonner more, sure. Like, I don't care. Like, I'm not going to get as pigeonholed as, oh, Harburg has to play more, right? I think that's the part that I have a disconnect with, because it's like, okay, yeah.
But you can say something like, we need more EJ, Jalen, Bonner types. Right?
Sure. And if you want to put Harburg in that category, 100%, no big deal.
Remember what Mike and KC said 3 weeks ago, and we acted like we didn't know what he was talking about.
What?
He's like, sometimes at that spot, you just want like a football guy. And we were like, what is he talking about? And we debated whether
he's talking about playing both sides of the ball,
a two-way guy or not. And I said, no. I think he's talking about a mentality.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I think Mike was talking about, I'm going to rally behind a mentality. And it doesn't have to look a certain way except for you want it to be uber competitive.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think. And
is that why you think people gravitate towards Harburg?
You know what I think it is now?
What's that?
And Nebraska's got to they got to buckle up now. You got to toughen up and hold hands with one another, because what you saw, the elephant in the room, is after Dylan's slide that was short of the first down, that he did not want to give himself up. The whole game, he was different after that. Mm-hmm. And I said to Sharp real time, because I wasn't sure. I go, man, I said, Dylan hasn't been the same since the slide. I wonder if he re-aggravated something. I don't know how that was received, because, and I'm not, it is what it is, right? Everybody saw it. So I just was curious now going forward as we talk about this whole thing, because with Nebraska, some guys want to talk about talent, but it's hard to talk about talent when you don't catch. Like, am I good enough? Do I have a certain baseline enough talent to run a scheme?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do I have a certain baseline enough talent to catch a ball that's thrown to me? You would think yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So the talent discussion is one thing. What am I doing in the meantime while I can still generate wins? Like, that's really where the program is. And you better figure it out. It's not like you have to come up with what the problem is, because for 20 years it hasn't been the coach or the players, because they've all changed,
or the scheme.
They've all changed.
Everything's changed. There's not a single thing.
We got to figure out what the constants are over that duration.
Yeah, that's the thing I don't think anybody's been able to do, right? Whether it's a coach, whether it's the players, whether it's the fan base, is identify what actually is the problem here. And I mean, I could sit here and think about it and try and speculate, but I don't think anybody actually knows.
I think people have some ideas.
I think they have some ideas, but until those, the issue with a problem like this is until you solve it, you don't know if you identified the problem correctly.
Yeah, because you got to come out of the back end.
Yeah, you got to come out the back end to know, okay, did I guess what the problem was right? Or am I solving an issue that isn't really there? And I think that's what a lot of coaches over the last 20 years have done. Let's get to the phone lines here. If you want to join, 888-638-4876. Casey from Tennessee. What's going on, Casey?
Yes. I just wanted to ask DB if he thinks that Dana Holgorsen will be able to get Dylan Raiola to calm down with his feet.
Yeah.
Sometimes it looks like he's rushing with how he's throwing. And I understand people want to compare him to Patrick Mahomes, but you notice Patrick Mahomes is throwing a lot more interceptions this year too, throwing it off balance a lot.
Yeah, I appreciate that call, Casey. I think that's part of it. I think going back to fundamentals and basics is huge, because I just think it was too much too soon, right? It's just like we gave it kind of carte blanche, and it's just not really. It just hasn't been the Nebraska way. We've got to find a way to move off of these quarterback-centric offenses that we've tried for however many years, where we just think this thing can't work unless you get the right quarterback.
So I'm glad you brought that up.
We got to move off of that,
because I don't think it's just the quarterbacks, although I do think that's a big one. I think Nebraska football for the better part of 20 years, and I don't know if this is the problem that needs solved or if it's a symptom of it, but Nebraska for the last 20 years has been looking for a savior, right? Whether it's,
I get it.
Hey.
Yeah, that's the thing that was my number one fear.
With Dylan?
No. Same thing, but with Dylan was with Frost. I said the hero
Yeah.
I said that. The savior thing isn't going to work.
No, it's not. That's not real.
And nobody's built to handle that.
Yes.
Here. They just aren't.
Yes.
Everybody's tried it.
Yeah. And I mean, you want to go all the way back.
Everybody's tried it. Everybody. Hey, get the guy.
Get the right guy. Just get the right guy.
Listen, and I can say this to him because it's my guy. He just texted me Saturday. For as great as T-Phrase was, for as competitive as he was, he needed help.
Not a savior.
He just was. For as great as LP was, he was replaceable.
Not a savior.
For as incredible as Dean Steinkuhler was, there was another. For as amazing as Zach Wiegert was, there was another.
Listen to all the guys you just rattled off. They were all replaced, either in their careers or directly after, right?
And I think that's why, that's part of it. Like, this place is not built for a singular entity to be the guy, because it's too easy to fall into bad habits.
And there's just too much, right? There's too much here for that to be realistic. And as long as you're looking for that, as if you're looking
whether it's
for,
a coach, because that's why I hate the
coach,
whole
player, whatever.
That's why I hate the who are you gonna get?
Yeah,
like that drives me.
Get somebody who's going to get it right.
Do
you think people look at Lance Leipold as a savior? No, that's a guy that does it right. That's a guy that knows what he's doing. You think people look at Chris Kleiman like a savior? No, it's a guy that knows what he's doing and does it right. Like, this is a dude. Like, that's what worries me about, like, a Dion, for instance. There's a lot of things that bother me about him, but wherever he was going to go, he was going to be the savior. And maybe there's certain places where he can do that, and he's built for that, and maybe that works.
But guess what? Even in that micro of an example, he still has Travis and Shador, who get now most.
Yeah, they split.
Now they get most of the attention.
Let's get to Nate here on the Hurrdat Hotline. Nate, what's going on, man? What's up, Nate?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
What's up, buddy?
Yeah, I love your show, man. Quickly, man. I was hearing
Thank
y'all talk, man, and I'm just from the outside looking in, but I don't know. It just seems like it's just too much delegation in coaching now. I don't know when the evolution started from assistant coaches to coordinators, but it's like as a head coach, you take like Matt Rhule, for example. He just somebody, the play calling, it seemed like he knows football. He's coached at the professional level. It seemed like he would have step in sometime. Like Nick Saban was notorious for that. If he didn't like the way a game was going, he would step in and take over. And I just don't see that with Matt Rhule. It's kind of like just two hands off. I may be wrong, but I just want to get you guys input.
Nate, let me ask you something. Who's a program that you look at and you think, man, that team looks like their head coach? Like where there isn't so much delegation.
Well, I mean, it's kind of across the landscape these days. It's kind of like all the head coaches, they hire these coordinators, they give them a couple $1 million, and it's just like I say like Alabama probably was, and then like Tennessee too.
I would say Kirby and Nick, kind of their teams look like their coach's personality, right?
Yeah, man. Also too though, it's like you got linebackers now that weigh 210, man. And I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but if I was an offensive coordinator, I think I would want to line up with 2 tight ends and a fullback. Because, I mean, these players now, I don't think they could handle that, just coming downhill with a fullback and 2 tight ends. I mean, they would adapt, but I think you could, yeah. So that's just my take on it, guys, and thanks for taking my call.